turn off your phones, please. Mr. Jonathan Hadida, would you please kindly take your position here?
Right.
I'd like to introduce Jonathan Hadida with Hadida Tax Advisors. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that you guys are probably like oozing with questions, but hold on to them. Jonathan's going to make his presentation. He'll have a Q&A. We have plenty of time. We have until 5 p.m. or even after if he's willing to stay. And so all I can say is you're in for a treat. And at that, Jonathan Hadida.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to have time because normally when I present with Adrian comes with the hook. So last time we spoke, Adrian.
That's not true.
You gave me 5 more minutes. Then it was like, stop, Jonathan, now. So I am excited to speak to y'all about a subject that matters because let me tell y'all something that I figured out a couple years ago. It all comes back to taxes. At the end of the day, if you're going to live in France, taxes. You want to die in France, taxes. It all comes back to taxes, okay? And I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. You guys found a trick. Everyone who's moved to France, you guys have found the loophole. You have found the Florida of Europe. You guys have come to the perfect place. I'm not just saying that because I want y'all to be my clients. I'm saying that because it is amazing for retirees here. This is the country for American retirees. Again, I don't really care, I don't sell France, but this tax treaty, we'll talk about it, is amazing. Okay?
It's the Florida of why is Florida such a great place?
Of course. It's the Florida. Let me explain why it's Florida. Thanks a lot, y'all. Anyways, it's the Florida because at the end of the day, you are not going to pay any more taxes here than if you lived in the state of Florida. You are going to pay no state taxes unless you have a home and you're selling a home in the state. You are going to pay federal taxes to the U.S. government. You are going to pay no taxes to France, income taxes to France. You are in Florida. You are not you don't have to deal with the heat. You don't have to deal with the humidity. You don't have to deal with the swamps. And at the Democrats abroad, I added, you don't have to deal with Ron DeSantis. I'm not adding that here because I'm not getting political. So, what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about a couple of things. So the first thing, we are going to talk about tax residency. So, are you a tax resident in France? The answer really comes back to, it depends. Now, let me tell you something. If I don't say it depends 20 times in this presentation, you get your money back. So, it depends. We'll talk about French tax residency. We'll talk about U.S. residency. Because at the end of the day, most of y'all are Americans. As Americans, God love Uncle Sam. He wants you to file an American tax return. Hooray. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Greatest system in the world. God bless America. Gives me a job and feeds my kids. So, from there, tax liability in France and the U.S., what are you taxed on? I don't know. Let's find out. How to avoid double tax. We were talking about it earlier. You're working in France, you're paying tax in America. How do you avoid double tax? And vice versa. So we're going to talk on that. From there, we're going to talk about some considerations, things you need to know as Americans living here. Okay? Notably with regards to gifting. It is very important to understand that if a French person walks down the street and says to you, hey, here's $100,000 and 10 cents, you have a U.S. filing requirement. That being said, if you find that French person who's walking around giving $100,000 and 10 cents out, please call me. I will fly to you to get that, to meet that person so he can give me $100,000. And then from there, what to watch out for. Okay, so these are going to be planning ideas that you can do before coming to France and then while you're in France. Now, the main thing that we'll see here at the bottom, I am not an estate planner. Okay, I am not an estate. I do not do inheritance taxes. I cannot talk on that all that much, unfortunately. Yet, we are getting there. We will be there. I will come back soon enough to talk about estate and inheritance taxes. Today, I am not going to talk about inheritance taxes. So just to be abundantly clear, if you have questions, I'll give you a general answer, but I will not go into specifics because I don't have them just yet.
Well, they're too complicated.
Nothing's too complicated, Adrian, in life if you put your mind to it. At the end of the day, American taxes are complicated. but we figured it. We more or less figured it out.
This is French inheritance tax.
Oh,
That's
French inheritance tax. Yeah, no,
insane.
that's yes. French inheritance tax. Basically, don't die in France is what we came out with Adrian last year. Is do not die in France. But then Adrian likes to say, you have to live here. You have to live here. So you have to live here. Just don't die here, please. Okay. So we'll talk about all that stuff. All right.
You want me to move
So
to the next slide?
so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now the boring stuff. Me. So who am I? I am Jonathan Hadida. I am the founder and CEO of Hadida Tax Advisors. There are three of us, Danielle, Damien, and myself. Okay, Danielle and Damien have made the great choice of living in Paris, just like y'all. So they're in Paris. I am not in Paris. So if you ever are looking for me in the street and wondering where is Jonathan, Jonathan is not on the streets of Paris. I am not on the Champs-Élysées. I am sitting in my nice little home in Switzerland, looking at fields with my kids. So basically, I'm based out of Haute-Savoie. I like to say I actually sit a kilometer inside the French border. I can see France from my window. I truly can. But so basically, that's me. I am a member of the New York Bar, so I am a lawyer by trade. I have law degrees from l'Université de Montréal, Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto, and McGill University. What does that mean, folks? That means I'm going to let you all in a little secret. Please don't tell many other clients. I'm not American. I'm Canadian. I'm from the great province of Quebec. So,
Why do you have 3 law degrees?
because my friend, I didn't want to start working. I was looking for a way to have fun without working yet. I graduated law school. I graduated Université de Montréal at 22 years old. I could have gone to work at Lavery de Billy in Tour Montréal. It would have been magnificent. My mother would have been so quelling with pride. I would have been horrible. So that's why I have three. That's why I have 3 law degrees, because I really didn't want to start working for a while, and that's what I did. So before I started working for Hadida Tax Advisors, I have worked in Belgium. I worked for Deloitte. I worked in Switzerland. I worked for Deloitte. I worked in France. I worked for a firm here in Paris. I worked in Geneva. Well, that we talked about. I worked in the US for a firm called Provision. And last but not least, I worked for the Canadian government. God bless the Queen. We are a tax firm that we specialize in American and US tax returns for US people living in and around France. 95% of our clients are in France. So we specialize in Americans living here, nowhere else, pretty much. But if you have friends in America who want our help, send them our way. More than happy to help. But basically, that's what we specialize in. Okay? Any questions about us? Yes, sir.
Do you have a credential related to filing taxes in France?
I am no.
Okay.
No. I prepare. We prepare. We're a preparer. We don't have a degree in France. No.
Okay. But that doesn't matter.
No.
But anyone can prepare taxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just jump in and follow up on that? Because the French filing system is all online, what he'll do is tell you what to put where, and then you just go in and you put it.
Actually, no. What we'll do is the way we work on the French returns is we prepare the French returns on a system called Click Impôt, which is a system used by many preparers. You then go in. We then send you the return. We go through the return with you, and then you certify the return and click and you push the button at the end of the day. So we prepare the returns. You click the button at the end of the day. But we take responsibility. We tell you, this is why we filed the return this way. But yeah, basically at the end of the day, you get the returns on click, and then you click a button.
Okay.
Jonathan, just so you know,
Yes.
everyone else is not mic'd up like you and me.
Yes. So talk louder.
So, no.
Oh, repeat
just
the question.
might want to repeat the question.
Got it.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions about us before we jump into the brut de l'histoire?
No, let's jump.
Let's jump. Let's go for it. All right. Are you a French tax resident? The answer is it depends. That's 2 people. It depends. We need to look at a multitude of things. Notably, where's your principal residence? Where is your professional activity carried out? Where is your center of vital interest? Okay? And this is a case-by-case basis, and it depends on your facts and circumstances. So if you want to send me an email saying, hey, I've lived in Paris for 6 minutes, and am I a French resident? Maybe is the answer, is the God's honest answer. But if you live here full-time, the answer is more likely than not, yes, you are a French tax resident. Again, whether or not that you have to pay taxes in France, that we'll touch on in a minute. But basically, as a person who has a principal residence in France, who works in France, or who has their center of vital interest, you are a French tax resident and technically should be filing a French tax return. Okay? There's also the 183-day rule, which says have you been in the country for more than 180 days? That is not the determining factor in France. As I said, it is the multitude of facts that come into play. So we have to look at all the facts of your circumstances to determine whether or not you're a resident. Okay? Any questions on French residency? Yes, ma'am.
No, it's just that in today's world, people are living all over the world.
Yep.
Not necessarily 183 days anywhere, quite honestly. So I assume the governments are having a big
problem.
Big
A
problem.
big problem, because at the end of the day, if you don't, again, as an American citizen, you always have to, spoiler alert for the next slide, an American citizen, you are an American tax resident, you have to file everywhere. Okay, so whether or not you're a French resident, facts and circumstances. And that's a tricky question for the French tax authorities that they have to ponder on every single case. Again, if the French government knows you're here, then basically you technically have, if you're here, you technically have to file a French tax return. Okay, that's the long and the short of it all. If you're a resident here, you have to file a tax return. Now, if you decide not to, that is your choice. I will not sign off on it.
You can't say it.
No. No.
I can, though.
You can say it. Yes, ma'am.
I can say it, right?
Well, the one thing I would add for anybody living here who aspires either to long-term residency or citizenship, one of the things that the immigration authorities, or the people who adjudicate this case, are looking at is compliance with British tax.
Can you speak this way into the room? Because we can't hear because you're speaking to us.
One of the things the French authorities are going to be looking at in adjudicating your case, even if you are here on a year-to-year visiteur visa, is whether you are compliant in terms of the French taxes you have to pay. And that often includes being asked about whether you're paying income tax, in addition to whether or not you're paying property tax, and in the past it was taxe d'habitation. If you own property, you certainly have to be paying real estate tax. So the only thing that I would say is that very often, and I'm sure Jonathan's going to get into all of the advantages for Americans of the bilateral tax treaty, it really it's a pain to have to fill out the French tax treaty. But in the long term, if you plan to stay here for the long term, it pays to go ahead, bite the bullet, and be fully compliant and pay or fill out the form, even though it's a pain in the butt.
Because basically, that's one of the questions I always ask: is how long are you planning to stay in France? If the answer is I'm planning to stay in France 6 months and then peace out, that's one thing. If I'm planning to stay in France for the rest of my life and I want to get French nationality, you need to get yourself into the system as soon as you can. Next month we have my friend Daniel Testado coming in. He'll talk about immigration questions and how to get it. He's told me you need to have at least 3 to 5 years of tax returns. But if I understand correctly, it's 3 years of tax returns. The sooner you get in the system, the better. Okay? And again, as U.S. persons, there are minimal tax implications of filing a tax return in France. Okay? So it's just one of those things. Again, it's case by case, facts, circumstances. But if you're planning to stay here for the long term, yes, you should be filing a French tax return. Yes, ma'am.
I just don't want anybody freaking out, okay? Their first year in France, I'm worried about their tax return, because when you come here on a visitor visa, they don't even know you're here, is the truth, okay? So there's the law, and then there's the reality. So if you're here for the first year and you don't know if you're staying or not, which a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I came for 1 year and never left.
Yeah.
The idea is not to freak out your first year over it. Give yourself the time, breathe a little bit, and then do what you have to do when it's necessary.
Exactly. So it's really, again, it comes down to what your life is going to be and what your choices in life are going to be. Okay? So that's the French residency. French residency is factual, case by case, and every case, is not the same. So just, if you get an answer of it depends, that's the truthful answer. Okay? Now, are you a U.S. tax resident?
You want me to
yes, please.
So,
are you a U.S. tax resident? Well, if you're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, you're a U.S. taxpayer, meaning you have to file a U.S. tax return irrespective of where you live. Okay? And that's important to note, because a lot of Americans forget that they're American first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Uncle Sam could care 2 hoots or a holler. where you live, or if you have French citizenship, French, carte de séjour, whatnot, if you're a U.S. citizen or green card holder, you have to file in America. Okay? Now, there's also something about substantial presence test, but I'm assuming everyone here is either a citizen or a green card holder, right? Or Canadians who are not planning to go to America. There we go. So basically, when we touch on those two, citizenship and green card holders have to file worldwide. If that is why there are organizations that get up in arms about this. I am here to help you with compliance. I am not here to argue about whether or not it's right. I'm just here to help you get your stuff correct with the U.S. government. So U.S. citizens and green card holders have to file worldwide. And I will argue that you guys as American citizens living in France, primarily here as retirees or not working fully, you guys are actually in a better place being American citizens than if you were French. So we'll get to that in a second because of the U.S. tax treaty with France. Okay.
Does Canada have a similar treaty?
Not as good though. The U.S. treaty is
better.
Some people call it the bee's knees for American retirees, Adrian.
Yeah,
So
some people.
Some people. I've heard it called. I've heard it said.
Okay.
So
next
slide, yes, ma'am.
Where are you going? Okay.
Hi. So if you are a French tax resident, what are you taxed on? Your worldwide income. Basically, the moral of the story is wherever you're a French tax resident, they want to tax you on your worldwide income. So a French tax resident is taxed on a worldwide income. Now, if you're not a French tax resident, again, facts and circumstances, but if you're not a French tax resident, you will be taxed on your income earned in France. So what does that mean? That means if you're not a French tax resident and you get a job at the McDonald's down the street, you are taxed on your income from that McDonald's. If you're not a French tax resident and you have an apartment that you bought with Adrian, and you're renting it out, you have to file a tax return in France on that rental income. Okay? So again, the main differences are French tax residents, everything. Non-residents, only income earned in France. Okay? So, U.S. liability. What's America tax you on? Guess what? Worldwide basis. Everything. Same as France. Irrespective of where you earn it. Okay? And this is important because some folks make the mistake of moving to France and thinking, I'm done. You're not done. Uncle Sam is never done with you. So, you are required to file on a worldwide basis irrespective of where you live. Okay? And irrespective of the source of your income. So again, if it's French-sourced income, U.S.-sourced income, Pakistani-sourced income, you have to file a U.S. tax return reporting all the income. Yes, ma'am?
File, but you don't pay both.
No, ma'am. That's absolutely correct. You got ahead of yourself. You saw my slides. You were sitting over there looking at my slides, weren't you? Okay, I get it. She's right. You don't pay both. And we're going to touch on that actually next slide. Do you pay double tax? Thank you very much for your lead-in. I'm truly grateful for that. Do you pay double tax? The answer is no. Okay, you do not pay double tax. And we're going to walk through, because again, I take a little bit more time today to talk through the mechanisms, how they work, because we have a little bit more time. But how do you not pay double tax? In the US, you don't pay double tax because of the foreign tax credit, the foreign earned income exclusion. And in France, you don't pay taxes because of the tax treaty. Okay, because you are US citizens. You do not pay double tax. Okay? So, let's start with the American side and how America helps you avoid double tax. Adrian. So, first one, the foreign tax credit. Okay? The foreign tax credit. How many of y'all are aware of the foreign tax credit or know how the foreign tax credit works? Just somewhat. Okay. The foreign tax credit is an annual form. It's Form 1116, okay? It's a form that you have to file with your U.S. return, and you have to report your income based off the type of income it is. So the two main ones are general limitation and passive income, okay? Again, stuff that we handle or that your tax preparer handles for you, but just so you can understand what it is. General limitation is basically your earned income. Passive income is like it sounds, it's your investment income, okay? And what it is you report to the U.S. government your income earned in France. Either, again, passive or actual earned income. And then you get a credit equal to the French taxes that you pay. Okay? Now, the key thing is in France, you tend to pay more taxes than if you were in America. Again, because in France, the income rates are higher. You're also paying more in CSG, CRDS. So you'll wind up paying probably more in France than you'll pay in America. The foreign tax credit cannot exceed the US tax on that income. So what do I mean?
What were all those initials?
Which initials?
The one you just, so the CSG and CRDS.
I'm getting it.
What does that
CSG,
stand for?
Cotisation Subsidiaire Générale, and CRDS, Cotisation, I'm drawing a blank right now. I will come back to you on the CRDS.
Okay.
It's a the responsabilité de dette sociale. It's basically, the CSG, CRDS are two social charges that you get taxed on your income earned in France. Those social charges are not actually Social Security. There was a court case a couple of years ago which determined, and the IRS has now upheld it, is basically stating that those two social charges are equal to income taxes, are akin to income taxes, and therefore are now creditable against US sourced income. So long story short, part of your social charges in France are now creditable against your US income.
So is that like URSAF?
That's like URSAF, yes. It's part of what you pay URSAF.
Part of URSAF.
Because it depends, again, URSAF is generally for self-employed persons, but
Right.
yes, it's part of what you pay to URSAF.
Okay.
Exactly. But the coming back to the other thing is foreign tax credits. So let's say your US tax on your foreign income is $100, okay? The foreign tax credit, the tax you pay to France, may be $110. You cannot get $10 back from the US government. The US government will give you a credit equal to the French tax. Okay, so they'll give you a $100 credit and you'll wind up paying no US taxes on it. Okay? And again, what is a foreign tax? The income taxes you pay to France, and then again, this CSG, CRDS. I'll try and speak louder if I can. Can you hear me? You can?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, sir.
Are there carryovers? for
Yes.
this type of
So you
credit?
carry it forward for 10 years. You can carry it back 1 year. You carry it forward 10 years. Okay. So again, if in 1 year you have a low foreign tax, you might have a carryover. You can use it in future years. So that's something. If you're working in France in the years before you retire, we would want to look at making sure you have as much foreign tax credit carryover as possible. Okay, because again, depending on how certain things are taxed. In France, one of the funny things is severance payouts. If you get a severance payout up to a certain level, it's tax-free in France. Well, in the US, it's taxable income. So if you have enough foreign tax credits, you can offset this income. Again, it's a little game that we have to play when we do your tax return, is to ensure that you have as much foreign tax credits as possible. Yes, sir.
Is this a U.S. form or a French?
This is US form, sir.
Okay. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
I only have U.S. income.
Yes.
I've never had foreign income.
Yes.
So why would I be getting or filing this form?
You would not.
Okay.
In your situation, you would not.
So then, what do I do?
You move on with your day.
Called nothing.
Nothing. You don't have to do it.
But I live here.
But you don't have any French sourced income.
No.
So then you don't have to file it. You only have to file it if you have French sourced
I'm
income.
going to go celebrate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
I'm a wise man.
don't you
But-
still have to write a tax form?
No. He has to do his tax return. He doesn't have to do Form 1116 in his situation. You have to only do Form 1116 if you have foreign sourced income. If you have French sourced earned income, French sourced investment income, then you do Form 1116. Otherwise, you don't have to file it. So in his situation, and again, I apologize, I don't know your whole situation,
That's okay.
but based on my understanding of his situation, he only has US income, so therefore he does not need a foreign tax credit because he doesn't have any foreign sourced income. Okay. Yes, sir.
What about the small amount of interest that you earn every year on your French bank account?
So you have to report it. If you pay any French taxes on it, you'll get a credit on it. But again, if it's a small amount of interest, $5-10, let's be honest, does it really matter?
Yeah, how much are you getting? I get a few pennies.
Okay, well,
okay.
no,
I
but if
mean,
you have
okay.
if you have interest income from on French interest, you can get a credit on it. So yes, you will get. Now technically, the taxes on that is if you do the PFU, the prélèvement forfaitaire, it's 30%. You'll get 17.2% of that. Sorry, 12.8% of that is income tax. Of the 17.2, you'll get 9.7 as the CSG CRDS. Again, you'll get a good portion of that as a credit. Yes, sir.
One thing I'll just quickly point out, anybody who has a livret A in France is tax-free. It's taxable in the US.
So in France, so we're going to get to that later, but basically one thing to watch out for as Americans. You walk into your bank says, hey, I've got this cool investment product. It may be cool to your neighbor. It may be cool to the people downstairs who are not American. But as you are American, investments in French stocks and various tax-free French accounts may create U.S. tax implications. So a livret A is an investment account where you basically can put money in and it grows tax-free in France. Well, guess what? America doesn't care.
Really?
Yeah, America, again, whenever in doubt, America doesn't care about the fact you live in France.
How about in Canada?
They don't care that you live in Canada either. They can give two hoots or a holler. They will tax you on everything. So again, your RRSPs, if you take money out of your RRSPs, there's special taxation there. If you put it into a registered Canadian student plan, they'll tax you on that as well. So
Wait, you could use your foreign tax credit?
yes,
That's interesting.
yes you can, if you have enough foreign tax credit to offset it. And again, remember, the foreign tax credit is by type of income. So there's earned income is one foreign tax credit, passive income is another foreign tax credit. And again, if you have a lot of earned income foreign tax credit, you can't use it to offset your passive foreign tax credit. Again, it's a little dance that we have to play on your tax return. But basically, long story short, if you have a French tax preferred account, it probably won't wind up being as good for you because you're American. It just is what it is. Yes, sir.
When you file the French tax return, do you have to provide a copy of your U.S. return?
If they ask for it, yes. If they don't ask for it, no.
What do you mean if they ask for it? Will they ask for it on a form?
Nope. They'll send you a letter. They'll ask for it. They'll ask for proof of that you, because we'll get to the treaty, but the main thing on the treaty is you have to show that it's paid. It says you have to have filed the taxes to America.
Well, it's a question of filing because I haven't filed my U.S. return. It won't be filed till April 15th.
That's fine.
When is the French return due?
You saw my slides and trying to get ahead of me, my friend.
Oh,
No. Basically, the French return. No. The French return is filed in May. It starts mid-April to beginning of June. So basically, it's a 6-week period. You have a 6-week marathon for the French return. But the thing is, you don't have to file. As long as you file the U.S. tax return by the deadline, you're okay on the French side.
Oh, good.
Okay, so as long as, again, the French government's not going to come knocking at your door after you file the French return saying, hey, please show me your U.S. return today. It's just in case they ever ask for it. Last year I had one client get asked for his U.S. tax return, and that was only because he had $40,000 of investment income.
How much?
$40,000 or something like that, and we were foreign sourcing it all on the French return, and they wanted to see that it was taxed in America. So we had to do it. That's great, but well, they may. Again, the operative word is they may. They may not ask for it. He lives up in Strasbourg in a small little city, and again, you have to remember, this is the key thing about the French authorities. To me, to my firm, Americans are our everything. They're 99% of our clients are Americans. To the French tax authorities, you are 1 in 1,000. Okay? To the French guy who's picking up your French tax return, you are 1 in 1,000. So they've looked at 999 other tax returns where they haven't seen the U.S. tax treaty. They pick yours up and they go, oh, shnikes, a French tax return. I have to look at this now. What am I gonna do here? U.S. tax return. Sorry. So basically, that's why you have to just take note. You are special to the French tax authorities. They will make we're going to get there, but they're going to make a mistake on your tax assessment more likely than not. More likely than not. I like to joke. I say it tongue in cheek, but it's the truth. If you're here 5 years and you do not get an assessment that's wrong, you are lucky. It just is what it is. It's not that we've prepared the return wrong. It's that the French authorities don't have the knowledge of the treaty as well. And again, it depends on where you live. In Paris, it's generally better than in smaller cities. But again, luck of the draw, like everything in life. Yes, ma'am.
And I don't mean to get ahead, but if you've filed the F-bar,
Yes.
lists all the amounts that you have in non-U.S. banks.
Yes.
How does the IRS know whether that amount in those banks is interest earned or is capital?
That's to the department. So the FBAR goes to the Department of Finance, and they wouldn't know. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know, but you have to report all your interest income. It's being taped. Someone may see this later and say like, "Oh my lord!" But basically, yes, you have to report all your income. Is
Jonathan,
basically.
you have another slide with this same title, so there's
Yes,
more.
there's two.
There's more to this.
But we've pretty much covered all of it. Let's see what
Well, I
else
was
we have.
gonna say.
So, the foreign tax credit. There's two ways of claiming the foreign tax credit. It's based on the taxes you either pay in the year or that you accrue in the year. Okay, so in some years you may, again, you can start on the paid basis. Once you go to accrued, you're stuck on accrued. But basically, this is something that your tax preparer will handle for you. Long story short, as long as you're not working in France, it's not a big slide. It's just here in case I didn't know what we're going to talk about. But basically, paid is the taxes you pay in the year. Accrued is the taxes that you accrue in the year. Okay? Long story short, the foreign tax credit is there to ensure that you do not pay double tax on your income earned in France. Okay? That's the most important thing for you all to know. Okay? The next slide. Now, how many people here are working in France?
Not many.
Okay. Working, more or less. Okay, working. And you guys have heard me talk about this because we went through this in detail with y'all. But basically, the foreign earned income and foreign housing exclusion. If you work in France, the U.S. has a second mechanism to avoid double tax, and that's called the foreign earned income and housing exclusion. The U.S. government allows you to exclude straight off the top the first $120,000 in 2023, $120,000 of income. So therefore, if y'all decide to go off and Adrian's is looking for someone to work for her, and y'all just start working for Adrian, and you all make $119,000 a year, it'll all be excluded straight off the top on the U.S. tax return. Okay? So the U.S. provides this exclusion, which is straight off the top, $120,000 off, excluded straight off the top, provided that you meet one of two time-based tests, and that you live outside the U.S., you meet one of two time-based tests, and you earn income from employment. This is only your employment income that we're talking about. So that's why I asked who works in France. You'll be able to exclude straight off the top. Okay? So the two time-based tests.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
The U.S. is looking at it as U.S. dollars?
Yes.
Converted from euros?
Converted from euros. So again, it used to be much more. As you know, it used to be much more. So now, yes, they converted it to U.S. dollars. So everything on the U.S. tax return is converted with an annual exchange rate for the year. So, and again, every year has a different one. This year, I think it's 0.95 or something. Again, don't hold me to it, but there's an annual exchange rate that we use, and we take it from there.
No, but the IRS rate. Do you remember how much it was for 22?
No.
I don't remember.
I think it's like,
it was 0.96 or something.
Yeah, so it was
Something
huge
like
delta. It's a huge delta from last year. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But basically, you convert. So on the U.S. tax return, you convert all your European income, your euro income, into U.S. dollars. All your Swiss income into U.S. dollars. Whatever currency you have, you convert it into U.S. dollars and report it in U.S. dollars. Okay. So yes, sir.
I was saying, you want to highlight the difference between working in France and getting paid by a U.S. company in France.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question because it comes down to visa, and now you've opened a kettle of fish there, my friend. So the question was, what's the difference between working in France and getting paid by a U.S. company in France? And that one there, it really comes back.
No, that's easy, Jonathan. It's not about working in France. It's about getting paid in France by a French company.
Oh, by a U.S. company was the question.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was paid by a U.S. company. So That question is a big one. So let me answer it this way. That question depends on where are you sitting and where are you working. So if you're paid by a U.S. company, so you're a U.S. person, you're working for Nike, they second you here, you're paid out of Nike in Beaverton, Oregon. They pay you on a W-2, you get the foreign earned income exclusion against that income. So you still, it does not matter where you earned, it matters where, colloquially, it matters where is your butt. That's
no, but if he's not tax resident in France, then that's another story too.
Yes, that's another story too. But in this case, he is a tax resident. In my scenario that I built out from his question, he's a tax resident in France. So yes, if you're working in France and even if you're paid from a U.S. company, you can benefit from the foreign earned income exclusion.
Okay. I think the bottom line is how is the company declaring you in France as somebody earning income and therefore liable to pay tax?
Yeah. Again, that's what makes that question so tricky. That's what makes that question, because again, you've got small startups which are sending people here to telework, and that is leading to nothing but trouble right now. So we've got tax situations. That's why that question's a bomb question to a certain extent.
Let me make it a little bit more complex.
Go for it.
Many large corporations who send over employees to work will also pay for their taxes while they're here.
Yep.
Makes it another issue on how you report.
So we're talking about tax equalizations now? You want to cover that? Yeah. Okay.
How much time? I mean, how much time have we got?
No. But you're absolutely correct. So foreign companies, that's how I started in tax. I was working for Deloitte, and basically our clients were basically Americans who were seconded to Belgium and to the Netherlands. And I used Nike as an example because Nike was one of my clients. But basically, it all comes back to where are you working. So in that example where the US company is sending someone abroad, you have to pay tax. You have to pay tax in both countries. America will give you this foreign earned income exclusion to avoid double taxation. Okay? But again, if you're working in France, you will avoid double tax with the foreign tax credit and this foreign earned income exclusion. Okay? And the foreign earned income exclusion looks at two residency-based questions. You know, how long are you staying in France? So we look at first, are you a bona fide, first we look, are you physically present outside the United States for 330 days in a 365-day period? So if you're planning to stay in France for a year and you want to exclude your earned income, you have to look at your calendar pretty flippin' well to make sure you're out of the country for 330 days out of the 365-day period. It happens. And then from there is if you have not met the physical presence test, we then look at, are you a bona fide resident? Meaning, are you a resident of a foreign country for a full calendar year? So basically from January 1st to December 31st. So technically in your first year when you come abroad and working in France, we may only file your first year, so for example, 2022's tax return, we're filing them now. We may file some folks' tax return in 2024, in January 2024, because we file an extension through till January 24 to benefit from this bona fide residence test. Okay? Again, facts and circumstances, every case is different. It's just important to understand, if you're working in France, you can exclude up to $120,000 of income, provided that you live outside of the US for a sufficient period of time. Yes, Emily?
Is there any scenario that you would be filing both?
Yes. So you can file the foreign earned income exclude up to 120. If you're making more than 120, the remainder of your salary will be offset with the foreign tax credit. So that's something, and then there's an interplay between the foreign earned income exclusion and the foreign tax credit that we do that on our side, but yes, there is quite a few chances where you file a foreign earned income exclusion and the foreign tax credit in conjunction. Again, working together, in most cases, Americans who are working here in France and paying taxes here in France, again, working here in France, will wind up not paying any US taxes or very little US taxes in most cases, okay? And again, everything's facts and circumstances, but most cases, you work in France, you pay tax in France, income tax, the social charges, you'll wind up not paying much to any US taxes, okay?
I moved it forward.
Okay, so as I said, it's 120,000 this year. It was 112,000 in 2022, sorry.
Wow, they went up a lot.
Yes, it went up a lot.
Is that
Inflation.
not because of the tax, the rate, the euro to dollar rate?
It could have something to do with that. Yes, it could have something to do with the U.S. dollar getting stronger, but it's gone up significantly in the last year. On top of that, on top of this 120, and again, I'm going to go through this a little faster because not many y'all are working here, so don't want to bore y'all. But next slide, Adrian. Oh no, sorry. Actually, go back. Sorry, I thought I had a slide there. On top of that, you also get an exclusion for your housing. So you asked me, sir, what we're going to talk about tomorrow at the AARO. This is something we'll talk about tomorrow at the AARO. But basically, on top of that, you can also get a housing exclusion. So again, you may wind up excluding more than 120,000. So that's on the housing. But again, since not many of y'all are working here in France, we'll skip that for now. But basically, long story short, the most important thing for y'all to take away, between the foreign tax credit and the foreign earned income exclusion, if you work in France, you will not pay double taxes in America. You will probably not pay any taxes to America. Okay, so that's what I told you earlier. And then basically from there, on top of it all, there's an interplay between the two that we go through on an annual basis to make sure that you're best placed for you. Okay, and every case is different, every circumstance is different. Okay, so just take note of that. Okay, any other questions on the U.S. treatment of French-sourced income? Okay, this is the slide that matters to most of y'all who are here, having worked in France and now here as U.S. retirees. The U.S.-French tax treaty. As I said, some people have called it the bee's knees for American retirees. I don't know who they are, but those people might be very, very bright. But bee's knees for American retirees. Now, why is it the bee's knees? The reason it's the bee's knees, okay, Adrian, is that the U.S.-French tax treaty, I've heard it called the best tax treaty for American retirees anywhere. That's not me, that's other people. The U.S.-French tax treaties under Article 24 and various other articles allows you to get a deemed tax credit on your U.S.-sourced investment income. So that's interest, dividends, capital gains, pensions, and real estate investment income. But rental income, not rental income. You get a deemed credit equal to the French tax. What's that mean? Okay, my friend there has $1,000 of investment income in France. Sorry, I'm going to use that number because it's just easy to use. He has $1,000 of U.S. sourced interest income. He invests with Dunhill Financial. Okay, he invests with Dunhill Financial. He gets $1,000 of U.S. sourced interest income a year. He reports it on his French tax return as U.S. sourced interest income. The French tax on that U.S. sourced interest income is $300. It's 30%. France will give him a deemed credit equal to the equal to the French taxes. So France will give him a deemed credit equal to that $300, and you'll wind up paying no French taxes. Okay, is that clear? Because this is important now. A deemed credit. So it's not the actual U.S. taxes you pay. It's the deemed tax. So if the French tax is $300, they'll give you a credit equal to the $300. That is why I jump up and down and say you guys are in Florida here. That's why I jump up and down and say use U.S. sourced investment advisors. So if you wanted me to tell you, I'm going to jump ahead. The most important thing you all can do besides getting a good tax preparer is making sure you invest with someone who knows the U.S. rules and you don't go to your French bank and you invest with a French bank. As a U.S. person, it is imperative that you invest as much as possible, again, for tax purposes. I'm only talking from a tax perspective. I'm not talking from an investment perspective. From a tax perspective, with U.S. sourced investment advisors. Again, tax, not investments. Please do what you want on your investments. I don't want to get on that. Interest, dividends, capital gains, pension. So your pension, if you get U.S. Social Security, we will report your U.S. Social Security to the French government. You will get a deemed credit equal to the French tax. You have a rental property in California, you will get a deemed credit equal to the U.S. tax. Okay? That is why it is the bee's knees for American retirees. You report it, you get a deemed credit. You will pay no French tax. Okay? Any questions on this? Because this is. Now we'll get there. Yes, this is income tax. Sorry, just to be clear, I'm talking about income tax.
That's what I was saying. Not property.
I'm talking income taxes.
Not
I'm only talking income taxes here. I'm not talking property taxes.
Right.
I'm not talking Puma. I'm talking income taxes. I'm not talking cotisation subsidiaire maladie, income tax.
Okay, does this include also not just Social Security, but private pensions?
Yes, ma'am.
and
Private pensions are included.
And the 401k?
Yes.
Is-
So your
is that
401k
okay?
distributions, your IRA distributions, your Roth distributions, your 403bs, your whatever you have, U.S. pension income is good.
Okay.
You pay no French. You report it. It has to be told to the French government. You still tell the French government, I have $100,000 of pension, U.S. source pension income, so 100,000 euros, whatever exchange rate is. You get a deemed credit equal to the French tax.
And also for the capital gains?
Yes, ma'am. Also for the capital gains, U.S. sourced capital gains. If you sell a property in France, that
You sell your stock.
you sell your U.S. stock. Yes, ma'am.
But if you sell your property here in France, that's
You sell your property here in France. It's French sourced income.
right.
You sell French stock that you have at BNP Paribas. That's French sourced income. So again, U.S. sourced investment income.
But what if you hold French, the French stock as ADRs and a brokerage in the United States?
It's a U.S.
and they-
stock. So ADRs are U.S. stock.
And they take the tax at the source, is what?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And coming back to the gentleman's question earlier, there is the chance that the French government wants to see your tax return. Because in order to benefit from the treaty, you have to prove that you've paid taxes or at least reported your taxes to America. So there is the chance that the French government says, hey, please prove to us that you've reported this income to the US government. Okay? So again, if that happens, it's relatively simple. Thank you very much for your request. Here's my US tax return. Bisous, bye-bye. Okay?
And
So-
this is irrespective of fluctuations in the exchange rate?
Yes. Irrespective of fluctuations in exchange rate. And here's why I'm saying you are in a better position than the people downstairs. The French tax is 30%, is the flat tax. The US tax on qualified dividends and long-term capital gains is 15%. Your interest income is at your tax rate, whatever it may be. You may wind up paying less taxes by being American than if you were just French. So it really is an amazing situation for y'all. It really, at the end of the day, you'll pay Uncle Sam, but you won't pay France. It is a huge, huge win. Okay. Again.
Because you get more back even then.
Yes, ma'am. So even if you've paid 15% to America, France will give you a deemed credit equal to 30. So basically, you'll wind up getting a bigger deemed credit than you paid to America, which is a win. Again, to me, is a win.
It's a win.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please tell me a little bit more about the capital gains on a property?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We're going to get.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. That's a slide later on. It's later on.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thank
any
you.
other questions on the treaty? Because again, this is for y'all. This is the key. Sorry, one second.
But there are some things not covered by the treaty.
Yeah, but not that many things. Most everything is covered by the almost everything that we see is covered by the treaty. That's the best answer I can give you. Yes, sir.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
I'm in France for less than a year, but I'm collecting pension, rental income, property in California, and Social Security. Am I liable for for filing a French tax return, or being aware that I might be liable to report any of that income?
Okay. So the gentleman asked, he's in France for less than a year. He's got a variety, a variety of U.S. sourced income, pension, real estate, and I may have missed others, but it doesn't really matter. To be honest, it doesn't really matter for the answer to the question comes back to what we talked about at the first slide. Am I a French tax resident? It depends. It really depends. At the end of the day, how long you're planning to stay in France. If you're planning to stay in France, we'd have to look at it's a case-by-case basis. We'd have to look at where is your center of vital interest? Where do you lay your hat at the end? Where do you intend to lay your hat? If you're just here hanging out, as I like to phrase it, or smelling the air, as one of my colleagues called it a couple weeks ago, you may not be a French tax resident. But it's a case-by-case basis, and it's not black and white, is the truth. Now, if you are a French tax resident, let me answer the question in the affirmative. If you were a French tax resident, U.S. source pension, U.S. source rental income, U.S. source investment income. Did I miss anything, sir? Is that everything? And Social Security. So U.S. source pension, Social Security, rental income, and U.S. source interest income. The tax treaty. You will pay no French taxes no French income taxes. Sorry, just to be clear, no French income taxes.
French aren't going to chase me when I go home.
Oh my God.
No.
They don't even know you're here.
No, I don't think they will chase you. They will not chase you again. Whether or not you have to file, facts and circumstances. If you do file, you will not pay any French taxes under the treaty. Again, whether you have to file, case by case. If you file, we would use the treaty. Now again, please note, you are 1 in 1,000. They will mess up your assessment. So if you, and I tell you all this so that way you don't have a heart attack if you get it, they may send you an assessment charging you X number of tax. It is wrong. Again, in the gentleman's example, it would be wrong. Do not freak out. Do not have a heart attack. Do not panic. Do not pull your hair out.
He did. Donald, was that you, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't hear what I said about not freaking out?
No.
No.
So there is a simple way to. We simply have to write a letter to the authorities, giving them the provisions of the treaty, basically spitting back the law at them, and it goes away very, very easily. Again, once every 5 years, if you don't get an assessment at once every 5 years, you're lucky. Is basically the long and the short of it all. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things, and I suspect I'm anticipating some of your future slides. I mean, it's very important, and this is where a tax preparer, at least the first time you do this, comes in handy. Knowing exactly where you report your income on the French tax form, because I made the mistake 1 year of not putting it where I had, or they changed the numbering enough, and if anybody knows the form is familiar with the fact that the way the French do this makes the IRS forms look like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
But suddenly I found myself subject to CSRDS and CSG charges because I put it in the wrong box.
Well, that'll teach you for doing it yourself.
I went, the thing is, and again, if I were not as capable in French as I like to think I am sometimes, at least I know enough to throw myself on the mercy of the court. I went to the tax office and I explained what happened and I figured out my mistake and they fixed it for me. Yeah. A tax preparer like Jonathan will probably take care of that for you.
Yeah.
The French are not, believe it or not, the French are not looking to screw you over and grab your money. They're doing what they think they need to do according to the regulations, and if they've made a mistake, 9 times out of 10, they will acknowledge it and they'll seek to fix it.
Yeah.
And my problem was resolved within 8 weeks.
Yeah. No, he's absolutely. I honestly find the French tax authorities to be better than the IRS, to be more lenient than the IRS, and to be more easy to deal with than the IRS. Okay, I find it quite simple. But it's one of those things you need to make sure you get it in the right box. You need to report it correctly. One box we talk about all the time is ATK. Like I literally use ATK as a verb. I go around. My kids are like, "What the heck's ATK?" ATK is the deemed credit column where you're supposed to put the income that benefits from the treaty. So basically, again, but basically, long story short, getting it right, and then again, if they send you a wrong assessment, do not freak out. And again, I say this just from experience because we've had clients who I had a client last year, he got one for 60,000 euros. Luckily, I had given him the whole spiel, and he basically said, "Okay, here you go," and he moved on with his day. Do not freak out. Yes, sir.
So if you get a 30% credit,
yes, sir.
and in the U.S. you paid 15%, what happens to the other 15%?
Your
Nothing.
pocket.
You don't pay. It's a deemed credit. It's not.
Deemed.
It's a deemed credit. It's not
reimbursable.
not reimbursable. That's the key thing. No, you don't get money. The French government doesn't give you 15% back. Then I'll be honest with you, all of America would come here.
The form is very confusing. The key thing to look at on the front page of what you receive, it will tell you what you owe. If it says 0,
Yeah, you just move on for your day.
move on with your day. Because if you open it to the next page and you look at all of the things you've been assessed for before you reach the credit,
Yeah.
you'll freak out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, at the end of the day, you should theoretically, in my example of U.S. sourced investment income, U.S. citizen, you should pay no tax. If you pay tax, don't freak out. We can handle it. It's relatively normal to have it happen, but it's imperative to remember you're special to the French tax office. I can't. Again, I apologize if I'm beating a dead horse. It's just important to understand.
Yeah, it's true.
They
really don't know.
They really don't know. They see only French people all day, and then they get to an American, it's like, oh Lord, it's different. Okay, so but again, this tax treaty and these clauses are magnificent. It is almost unheard of. When I talk to my colleagues who deal with the Dutch or the Belgian or whatnot, they're like, why is everyone not moved? Just move to France. It's
so I actually one last thing.
Yes, sir.
I repeat something I've said in this forum before. We Americans have a woman, an American lawyer who practiced here, named Stephanie Simonau. She was a member of Arrow for a long time. I think she may have even been a president in the past. But she took it upon herself to take the lead in negotiating this tax treaty. We Americans should, frankly, consider her a saint.
Yeah.
Because what she came up with, what she managed to get the French to agree to, is incredible.
Yeah.
Her name, Stephanie Simonau.
They wanted us here.
It honest to God is unheard of. When I started doing this, I started my U.S. tax knowledge in Belgium and the Netherlands. When I started learning about the French treaty, I couldn't believe it. Years later, I still can't believe they did it, to be completely frank and honest with you. It is absolutely magnificent. Okay? So, that is why it's the bee's knees. That's why there's the beauty of the tax treaty. That's why I have a job. And that's why again, we don't tell everybody, because then every flippin' American is going to want to move here. Okay? At the end of the day,
That's okay with me.
Absolutely, it's fine by me too. But at the end of the day, who's going to play shuffleboard in Florida? Yes, sir.
So, in the case of like a big U.S. capital gain,
Yes.
you said this is only about income tax. So, are there other taxes here in France that you might have to pay?
So there's something called the cotisation subsidiaire maladie, which is registered by Puma. Okay, the cotisation subsidiaire maladie is a social charge, is a medical surcharge of 6.5% on your U.S. investment income. Now there's a very, very, very good article by the AARO on Puma. So you can literally Google AARO Puma, and you'll find a nice article on it. The thing with the cotisation subsidiaire maladie is technically you should be paying it on, all should be paying it. There is again, read the article, because I don't want to put this on, there's a loophole right now that they are, for the most part, US sourced pensions are treated similar to French pension, because under this cotisation subsidiaire maladie, you don't pay the cotisation subsidiaire maladie if you have French income or French source pension, as well as Swiss pensions or European pensions. Well, right now, U.S. pensions are equated to European pensions by Puma, and most Americans are not paying it. But it may not last. It's not technically correct. I can not say anything more about that, because again, it's not technically correct. Let's not wave our flag up in front of Puma and tell them this, but A lot of Americans are not paying
Let's
it.
just
but-
not discuss
yeah.
it and let them not notice
Exactly.
it for as long
exactly.
as
But
possible.
it's out there. But there's AARO has a great article on Puma. Read it. If you read it,
Is it updated? Because
it was updated in 2021.
I know that's the problem. And this is a moving target.
It's one. It's one.
Staff is so far behind
Yeah.
in terms of billing, and people have found
Yeah.
themselves suddenly hit with this because they're being taxed on all of these capital gains and this huge income they may be earning on passive incomes back in the States.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise. And the appeal mechanisms for being able to challenge this
Are difficult.
very limited.
Yeah.
My advice, but this is just my personal advice, because this is what I do, is if you can avoid, if you have not already gotten into the French health system and you have an American carrier or somebody else like MSH, some sort of international carrier that can take care of your health needs in France, stay with that and do not get into the French health system until this is resolved.
Yeah.
So as Jonathan's saying, Arrow has been dealing with this, and I know, as I'm the former president of Arrow, it takes a long time for them to be able to update this information. And for a long time, Arrow was basically afraid that all of these people who had subscribed to an Arrow-backed health plan would turn on Arrow and say, well, I've been paying all of these premiums on this policy for a long time, and I could have been getting free health care from the French government because they're not going to come after me. And we went through a long period of looking into this and came to well, we really don't know because the French don't know what they're going to do about this. So in the end, this health plan that Arrow has been promoting actually makes sense for Americans who are arriving here and worrying about what they need to do vis-a-vis the health plan in France.
Yeah.
The health system in France is theoretically great, but as I think most of you know, watch the news, it's always on the verge of financial ruin. The other part of it, though, is that what her staff will come back at you with is something you can't predict for sure, and you don't know when it's going to be. So tread carefully.
Yeah. So the cotisation subsidiaire maladie is not, again, I talk about income taxes. It's separate from income taxes. In your case, remind me, you're working in France.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about this.
Okay.
You're working in France, and eventually you'll retire. If you retire here, you'll have pension income in France.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. It's only for U.S. retirees in France, or folks who don't have a pension, a French pension, or a European pension, or a Swiss pension.
Because I just want to also say, like you were making it sound like the French medical system is not so great and is on the brink of disaster. I've just spent 10 months on an arrêt maladie and had surgeries and whatever. I can just say I've paid zero. Like what would have cost me in the States $500,000, I've paid 200 euros.
Well, Jonathan is absolutely correct.
So,
if you are earning income here,
a carte vitale
you
is
definitely
like
you definitely want to be in the French system.
Yeah.
But just be aware that if you enter the French, say you're working here, you're a retiree, but you've also got a job here. The question arises as to what might be the total liability that you would have to pay for this charge. Given the fact that you're earning passive income in the United States.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. If I were working here full time or even part time, I would want to have the carte vitale because you're absolutely right. It's absolutely
There's just a category of some of us in the room that own businesses in the States.
Yeah.
And that may have capital gains from selling those businesses or having those businesses acquired. And so there's estate planning coming soon.
Yeah.
But there's also
the
healthcare
healthcare surcharge.
tax. And so it may not be living in Florida, it might be living in California.
Well, it's not.
Because
It's not part.
6%.
It's 6.5%. I guess it's something that you have to just again.
But for free healthcare, which you can't get in the U.S.
It might want.
It might still
Exactly.
be a
It might be
lot
so
less
better deal.
expensive, yeah.
It's really one of those things, and again, because of the fact that the French are behind, if you get charged with it, it happens. it's unfortunately it's a no man's. No one has the right. No one knows the exact answer. I'm technically giving the answer. The technical answer is foreign pensions, French, European, Swiss pensions. Every other pension should not factor in. I don't know about Canadian. I called Puma to ask them this question, and they said no. American pensions should not apply. Now again, I'm not going to tell.
That was one clerk.
That was
the person sitting next to him might have a different answer on a different day.
Yeah, but technically that's an open question. But again, that's not income taxes. That's separate. There again, France, as you may have known from living here, is a very segregated society and very segregated into their different offices. There's a tax office and then there's a social tax office. This is This is the Puma, which is different completely from income taxes. Yes, sir.
But does that only come up if you've registered in the French health system?
Yes.
So if you have not registered in the French health system,
yes, you don't have to worry about it.
$10 million in capital gains, they're not going to try and take 6% of that.
No.
And there's
As
no
far as I
upper
understand.
cap. If you are registered in the health system, there's no upper cap on the 6%.
Not that I know of, but there might be, because again, this is I don't know, to be complete. I don't remember right now. I'm sorry. If I was in front of my computer at home, I would get you the answer, but right now I don't have the answer.
You want to talk about the wealth tax?
It's coming. It's coming.
Before we move on, can you introduce yourself in the corner?
Like, why is he so knowledgeable?
I'm one of Adrian's stars.
This is William Jordan. Okay, he's a retired American diplomat. He's spoken here many times, and he was president of Arrow. And you tell me if I'm saying anything out of line, which is why. And he always has lots of interesting comments.
Yes, sir.
Just to change the subject for a moment.
Yes, sir.
The capital gains.
Yes, sir.
That's always spoken to and addressed in the positive. The maximum allowable deduction on capital gains, let's say on investment losses, is $3,000.
Yes, sir.
But the loss could be $500,000.
Yes, sir.
How do the French treat that?
Similar to what the Americans do.
What the Americans do?
No. In the sense that from an American citizen's perspective, it doesn't really matter. They track it. They track the losses. So, for example, if you were a French person, if you had French, we track the losses on the tax return, and we carry them forward until you have income to offset it, until you have capital gains to offset it.
They do the same?
They do the same, yes. But you don't have the $3,000 rule. Just to be clear, you can't take $3,000. You take zero. But if you have, let's say, $500,000, I can't remember the number you used. Let's say $500,000 of loss, you would just carry that forward until you have a gain to offset it.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So you could really have negative.
He doesn't believe you.
Yeah. No, he does.
Yeah, you could really have a negative.
No,
tax.
you could have a negative. Yeah, but it's not a negative tax. It's just a carryover loss. You just have a carryover loss until whenever.
But it ends up all being calculated.
Yes.
In basis for the calculation.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so 2022 tax season. The key dates and filing stuff to understand to note. So, U.S. tax residents, when is your deadline? As U.S. people, I'm going to jump straight to the second line. As U.S. individuals living abroad, your deadline is June 15th. You benefit from an automatic 2-month extension through to June 15th. Now, that is a debt extension to file, not to pay. So if you have big U.S. sourced capital gains, we would want to run an extension calculation for you by the April 15th, which this year is April 18th, the April 18th deadline. Okay? So April 18th to pay, June 15th to file.
Is it April 18th because the 15th falls on a...
15th falls on a Saturday.
And that's why they've...
Yeah, so 15th falls on a Saturday, 16th on a Saturday, 17th is a holiday in D.C. So then they push it to the 18th.
Pushed it. Okay.
Emancipation Day.
There you go, yes sir. Exactly. So again, it's the 18th to pay, the June 15th to file. From there, we can always request an extension through till October 15th, or again, October 16th this year, because the 15th falls on a Sunday this time. October 16th is also the deadline to get your FBARs in. So the foreign bank account reports are due, and we'll talk about FBARs in a second, is June 16th. From there, as U.S. people living abroad, and this is why my tax season is skewed, we can request an additional extension from October down to December 15th. So you can get an additional 2-month extension through to December if you need it to gather your information. Or again, for folks who are working in France, we're waiting for your French tax assessment. So we can file an additional 2-month extension until December 15th. The one proviso about the December 15th deadline is in that mid-November, the IRS shuts down e-filing. The electronic filing capabilities of the IRS close mid-November. So you want to try as hard as possible to get your returns electronically filed because of the fact that between the Postal Service and just the backlog at the IRS, the processing times are far, far slower when you paper file. Okay? So as much as possible, you want to electronically file by mid-November. But again, worst case scenario, you can always extend until December. Not October 15th, December 15th, because you live abroad. Yes,
Here's
Adrian.
the conundrum.
Yes.
Because you also have to report your U.S. income on your French tax return, which is due mid-May.
Yes.
You kind of have to actually know and do it before then anyway.
Yeah, you have to at least
Otherwise, you're doing a big guess and then you're adjusting it every year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
If you owe state tax in the U.S.,
Yeah.
you usually want to file by April 15th anyway with them, because otherwise you'll have a huge tax penalty from the state.
But again, every case is different. But basically, general things to understand. You have until June 15th. As Adrian said, you'll want to have your U.S. income tabulated from a French side by mid-May. Well, by mid-May when you do the French return. But at the very latest, you'll want to have your information. So we generally request our clients give us their information by the first week of April. The reason for that is that's when we start with the French returns. Because if you turn the slide, Adrian, so the French tax season starts mid-April. Yes, sir.
I just thought of something. Going back to the other conversation that we had on capital gains.
Yes, sir.
As you well know, we in the United States have limitations.
Yes.
The simple one is on state and local income tax.
Yes.
As a deduction. Nearly
$10,000.
$10,000, right. Well, you can have a $40,000 expense there.
Yes.
It's only limited to 10.
Yes.
What do the French recognize?
None. None. State and local taxes are a U.S. deduction, not a French deduction. So they don't none. The French, yeah,
so
states.
So they then take your American tax return and reconfigure it?
Who?
The French.
No.
Ah.
No. Again, the French, from a French tax perspective, they just want to see that you've reported your income to the United States.
Okay. It's not the deductions.
No, sir.
It's just the income.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I like to think it is. Then from there, the tax season. The French tax season starts mid-April. Okay, so that's why we ask folks to give us their information by 1st of April. Now, a lot of people have said to me before, well, what are you doing for the first part of the year? We're not twiddling our fingers. We're getting ready for the year. But basically, we can't do a French tax return until mid-April because the forms aren't generally ready until mid-April. So mid-April is when the forms come out. Mid-May is when the filing deadline is. So for those of y'all who've moved to France here for in the first year, your filing deadline is mid-May. If you've lived here longer, your filing deadline is the first week of June. Okay, this year it's the 7th of June. Okay, now again, if you're paper filing, mid-May, after that, mid-June. From there, September-ish, okay, the operative word is the ish. September-ish, you will get a tax assessment from the French authorities saying how much you owe. Again, as I said before, y'all are Americans, you guys are going to owe nothing. But September-ish, you'll get the assessment, and that will be where the French government tells you, hey, you owe 0 or you owe X because you've worked in France. Okay? If you owe to France and it's correct, you'll have to pay in installments. The French government's actually quite nice as opposed to the US where you have to pay on the day you owe it. They give you 2, 3, 4 months to pay it in. So you paid in ratably over the year. So it's not a case of you have to rush the money into the French authorities straight away. You'll pay it in September, October, November, December time. Okay? But again, the key thing is to understand, for firms like ours, we send you an estimated assessment. We tell y'all, hey, you're going to owe nothing. Then we get the final assessment come September-ish. If they match, hunky-dory, we go on our way. If they don't match, we then send a letter. Okay? Again, I'm repeating this over and over because it's important. They will screw up. Okay? They will. Okay. Yes, sir.
Job security.
Yeah. All right. Other things to consider. So other than income tax returns, what do you guys need to know? And here is, I'm going to hit you with a plethora of things to just watch out for. So what do we have? We have foreign bank accounts. We have gifting. So again, that nice man who wants to give you $100,000 walking down the street. We'll talk about him in a second. The French wealth.
You take it.
What? You take it and you run. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. French wealth tax. We're going to talk about French wealth tax. Again, it's a misnomer. It's really a real estate surcharge right now. And then we're going to talk about French trust filing obligations. Again, these are things that you have to know exist and are out there. Okay? Foreign bank account forms. So, the foreign bank account forms. On the US side, there are 2 foreign bank account reporting forms to do. One is called the FBAR, the Foreign Bank Account Report. It's also called FinCEN 114. That form is filed with the Department of Treasury. You have to file the FinCEN 114 provided you have over $10,000 cumulatively in foreign bank accounts in the year. So if you have 3 foreign bank accounts with let's make it 4. 4 foreign bank accounts with $2,500 each, US dollars, and again, we convert it based on an exchange rate, $2,500 each, you are at $10,000. You should file an FBAR. Okay? The FBAR is cumulative, not one bank account, all bank accounts. So if you have one bank account of $10,000 and then 15 bank accounts of $1, you report all of them. Okay?
But it's the most you've had in those accounts.
It's a maximum balance. Yes, ma'am. It's the maximum balance. So you have to report to the U.S. government the maximum balance you had in the year at any point in the year. So again, you want to buy a new car here in France. You transfer money over. I was going to say a house, but Adrian's going to jump up and down and say, don't transfer money into a French bank account before you buy a house.
That's right.
So I'm not going to talk about that. But you want to buy a car. You transfer money over to buy a car. It sits in the bank for a day. That's your maximum balance. Even if it sits in your bank account for 1 second, that's all that matters. Additionally, there's Form 8938. Form 8938 is part of the tax return. It is new. This is part of FATCA. It has filing. It's required to be filed depending on your marital status, depending on whether or not you live in the U.S. or if you live in France. Basically, for folks who live in France and who are single, it's between $200,000 and $300,000 in foreign bank accounts, and you have to file it. If you're married filing jointly, it's between $400,000 and $600,000. Again, it depends on your status and if you're, again, single or other, or married filing jointly. But basically, there are 2 things to note. So again, if you work with us, we send you a form. We just ask you to give us all your bank accounts. We then just, we do what we need to do to make sure that you're compliant on both of those. Okay? These are 2 separate filings and 2 separate forms to be filled. Okay? Gifts as a U.S. person. So actually, can we go back to the slide? One thing I may have added in a later slide, but I don't remember, is on the French side. So let's talk about the French side for a second. We may come back to it later, but I want to just mention it.
Is that it? No.
France on bank accounts is also going to want you to report your non-French bank accounts. Okay, so you're going to have to tell France, hey France, I've got this account at Bank of America, this account at Wells Fargo, so on and so forth. France will not ask you for the maximum balance. They simply want to know what accounts you hold. Okay, so please note, America wants to know.
French.
It's all about money laundering. It's all about knowing what accounts you have. So again, America wants to know all your non-American bank accounts with the maximum balance. France wants to know all your bank accounts that are non-French. Okay, so just know you have to report on both sides.
Yeah, and I want to add the FATCA aspect of this, because your French bank is now reporting to the Treasury or to the U.S. authorities what it considers to be your bank balances. So far, this is the case when I was with Arrow. The systems back in the U.S. don't quite mesh up or match up, and so the Treasury has not been able to look at everybody's F-bars and compare them to what the French or foreign banks are reporting to the same person. Maybe at some point they will, but that's another reason why non-compliance is probably not a good strategy. I mean, the F-bar is a pain in the butt, but if you don't do it, I mean, there have been recent court cases saying that Americans are liable to, I think, $10,000 fines for each
account
presumed willful act of non-compliance.
It's performed.
Oh, it's not per, it's
It's
performed, not per account.
Exactly. So it's $10,000 for non-filing. Again, the F-bar, it's simply telling them, hey, these are the bank accounts I have. Here's the maximum balance. But $10,000 versus just simply reporting, simply report. It's every day and twice on Sunday. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry.
So if I have a French bank account and I put $5,000 in it every 3 months, right?
And you use up those $3,000.
I use up that $5,000 and I have to reload that bank account every 3 months so that there's at least always $5,000 in it. At the end of the year, I have put $20,000 into that account.
Yes.
Do I need to file
No. No, it's the maximum balance at any point in the year. If the maximum balance at any point in the year is $5,000, which is your example, no. If you put $5,000 in today and $5,000 in tomorrow, you have $10,000, and then you use it on Friday to go buy a car, you have over $10,000. Okay? Yes, sir.
I don't know if this fits in exactly here, but now there's this form that you have to complete that says whether or not you're, if you own property, whether you are a resident or a visitor.
I think you're talking about
that's
declaring property you
coming
own.
up. That's
I think you're
coming up.
talking about declaring if the property you own here is a primary or secondary residence.
Correct.
Yes.
And okay, so it's coming up, but I'm just thinking about the implications of that because it seems like if you say that it's your primary residence, that would then flag you as someone who needs to complete their do a French tax form.
Yeah.
A
Again,
French
these are
tax return, and on the other hand, if you're doing Airbnb 120 days a year on the theory that you're a resident, that's what you're telling Paris, you kind of need to say that you are a resident. So
yeah, it's a bit of a tricky wicket, that one.
However, there's a reality to this, and I can say this, but Jonathan can't. And that is that every department is completely unique and its own little box. And you can live on what I call the petit chemin. And what that means is that the fonctionnaire who's managing the property taxes, which is what that's about, doesn't care about income tax. I mean, this is the reality. You have to just understand it. Okay? The professionals like Jonathan cannot tell you this, but this is the way it works in France. And then you play your own game the way you want. So for example, okay, if you have come here for a year on a visitor visa, I want you to relax for that year and not freak out about turning in the tax return, because 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, you can actually turn in the past year's returns. Because you don't even know if you're going to be here all that long, do you? Most of you come on some sort of a period of time to see if you like it. And so I would not lose sleep over turning in a tax return until you're sure that you're going to be here and want to be here for a long period of time. But that's my perspective.
From the French standpoint of claiming bank accounts, if you have like a 401k or a Roth, is that considered a bank account for the
I generally would recommend reporting them. There's different opinions on that one. It's probably safer to report it.
But there's no reason not to report it.
Not really. There's an argument not to report it, coming back to the wealth tax, in that if they ever bring back the full wealth tax, it wasn't subject to the wealth tax before. Again, it depends on who you talk to. Preparers say not to. Some preparers say not to. Some preparers you talk to. I've asked French attorneys, they've jumped up and down and said, yes, you should report it. Tell your clients to report it, Jonathan. Again, I don't think either way is wrong, but I tell my clients to report it.
And the bottom line is it's all about risk.
Yes, it's all about risk.
No matter what you do.
Yes, everything is about risk.
Risk.
What you want to take. Yes, Emma.
One last question. If you become a dual citizen,
do
any of these tax things change either on the U.S. side or the French side?
Absolutely
Not.
not. In your situation where you're talking American citizen becoming a French citizen, if you're talking a French citizen becoming American, then yeah, things change for that dude. But Americans becoming French, no. Americans becoming French does not matter one iota.
No, because it's residency, not citizenship.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't know if maybe for like the capital gains
No.
and
If you're
inheritance and all
if
that.
you're U.S., you could be U.S. French, and 5 other countries. U.S. is all that matters from the U.S.
And
perspective.
from the French perspective,
The treaty still applies. The treaty still applies. Doesn't matter if you're both countries. Gifts. This is important to note. You can gift as a U.S. person up to $17,000 per person in the U.S. So if you want to give your kids $17,000, you can do it. Now note, France is not as lenient. France has 150,000? 150,000 every 15 years. So you can give to your kids 150,000 every 15 years in France. 15 years. It's not every year 150,000. It's every 15 years 150,000. So again, the U.S., if you want to gift in the U.S., you can gift up to $17,000 per person. If you want to gift to a non-resident spouse, so to a non-U.S. spouse, $175,000 a year. Okay? So again, if you're going to gift, we have to do it correctly and plan it out from a French and U.S. perspective. France being more difficult than the U.S. because the U.S. gives you a lifetime exclusion of up to $12.9 million. Okay? The one that I want to talk about is the next slide. And this one here has come back to bite some folks. If you receive money from a non-U.S. person, money or property valued over $100,000, you may have a Form 3520, a gift from non-U.S. persons filing requirement. That's all you need to understand. Know is if you get a gift of real estate or money from a French person or a non-American, there is an additional filing to be done on the U.S. side. Okay, so again, if the guy walking down the street wants to give you $100,000 and 10 cents, you have this form to file. If you inherit from a French person, your French neighbor wants to give you their property, cool. You still have this filing to do. Okay.
Yeah, but you're going to pay tax on the French side.
You're going to pay tax on the French side. I'm only talking the American side. We're going to pay tax on the French side. But on the U.S. side, it's important to understand you get a gift of any value over $100,000 from a non-U.S. person, there is a filing. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So going back to the slide before,
yes.
If you're gifting with pension income from the U.S.,
Yes.
which the French has no interest in,
You technically are supposed to tell the French authorities via your notaire that you're gifting.
how do they know? How does anyone know if you gift?
You're technically required to report. Yes, sir.
Is that exclusive to money in real estate? Does it not include?
It includes everything. I just use real estate as my example.
Artwork, jewelry,
Whatever.
automobiles.
Whatever. Valued over $100,000, you have to file that. It's just important to note, if you get an inheritance over $100,000, you have to file that. Okay? Wealth tax. I'm going to go quickly over the wealth tax. It only applies, currently only applies on real estate. That is why it's a misnomer. It's currently a real estate surcharge. It is a real estate surcharge if you have a net value in your real estate over 1.3 million euros. Okay? So only if you have real estate with a net, imperative word, net value over 1.3 million euros will it apply. Okay? And the other thing that's important to note is if you're new to France, for the first 5 years you're in France, your non-French properties are not included in this calculation. Okay? So basically, 1.3 million euros net, French property for the first 5 years, after that worldwide basis. I had a client, he had properties in Boulder, Colorado. He bought them for $1 million in 2008. They were worth $15 million by the time he moved to France a couple years ago. At the end of year 4, he asked me, Jonathan, what's your tax advice? My tax advice was get out of Dodge. And then he moved. He moved back to the U.S. because at the end of the day, he was going to be subject to a 1% or 1.5% wealth tax.
Yeah, but he made so much money off that
so
property.
much money.
Who would care?
He made so much money. but it mattered. So he left.
And-
So
okay, so
basically,
the money mattered more.
in this case, yes, ma'am.
All right.
So basically, again, from a French perspective, 1.3 million euros, French property, and only on your French shores. Okay, and for those of y'all who are non-French residents, if you own a property in France, 1.3 million euros still applies. You may be subject to the wealth tax even if you're not a French tax resident on your French rental properties. Okay? Cool. Adrian, what do we got? Trusts. If you have a U.S. trust, there may be a filing requirement as well. France doesn't love trusts. France sees trust as basically as a tax dodge. There you go. Perfect. That's the exact
Well, that's
right
what
word.
they are.
Well, that's what they're seen as. They're good retirement planning for Americans living in America. But they're seen as a tax dodge from a French perspective. So just note, if you have a trust, there may be a French tax filing requirement.
This is a living trust?
A living
It's
trust.
a living trust?
Yes. So if you have a living trust, we can talk about it, but there may be a French trust filing requirement, which is separate from your income tax and needs to be filed by a French specialist who does trusts. We personally do not do them, but we work with people who do, and we can definitely point y'all in the direction. Yes, ma'am.
And if you're a beneficiary.
Yes, you have the same issue. Yes, sorry. If you're a beneficiary, you have the French trust. Beneficiary, trustee, whatever, you have a French annual filing requirement. Okay? The déclaration d'occupation de loyer, basically, yes, sir.
Just going back to the trust on 1.3 million of property owned in France.
Yes.
That's in addition to the property tax.
Yes.
So that's like a second property
Yes.
tax if you own a.
Well, it's wealth tax.
It's a wealth tax.
But in essence, it's.
Yes. It's a real estate
it's
surcharge. It's a property tax on top of 1.3 million net is the key again. But yes,
So when you say net,
well, if you take your value of your property minus your mortgage, and then you take an abatement for if it's a principal residence, or if it's rented out long term, we can potentially again. There are ways to calculate. So again, if it's a principal residence, it's 1.6 million ish net, but basically it depends on the property, depends on how it's held.
But in Paris, then it's fairly easy to get to that amount.
Yeah. Again, yes, provided you don't have a mortgage. Yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought of that. There's a tax benefit of having a mortgage.
Huge tax benefit.
Except you can get a mortgage card. Right.
If you can get the mortgage.
Yes. If you get and what is the rate? What's the tax rate?
It's up to 1.5%.
Okay. So.
It's not huge, but again, for my guy with 130 million.
Yeah, but 1.5% of the amount over 1.6 million.
Well, it's up to one. It's a graduated scale, so I'm giving you the top rate.
Okay, so it's not a tax on the 1.3; it's on a tax on the amount over 1.3.
Well, I think it actually starts at 700,000. There's a weird thing with if you reach the 1.3 ceiling, then they go back from 700,000 and start figuring it out.
So we just did a calculation for some folks who have $2 million ish of value. It was like $9,000 a year, $10,000 ish per year of wealth tax.
Jonathan, the property taxes in France are about 1/10 of what they are in the United States.
Exactly. So if you're moving from Texas.
So if you're paying some wealth tax here, it's not like you're going to pay more than if you're living in the U.S. Bottom line is you're still paying less tax.
Exactly. France has now included this new French Déclaration d'Occupation de Loyer. This is a new 2023 thing. If you own a piece of property in France, you have to tell the French authorities how you're using the property. This is technically was done because they got rid of the taxe d'habitation for principal residences. They want folks to tell them if they're using a property as a principal residence or not because they want to know who to charge the taxe d'habitation for. Is it going to be used for more nefarious means? I don't know. I cannot tell you. Yes, and they have to be filed by June 30th. You have to, by June 30th, tell the French authorities how you are using whatever properties you hold in France. Okay?
And do You just go to a website?
This is done on impôt.gouv, or you have to call, if you don't have impôt.gouv, or if you're not set up in the French system, you have to call the authorities and get yourself set up.
I also have someone who can help you do this.
No.
No, where, tell us again where you get it from.
Literally, if you Google the Déclaration d'occupation de loyer,
There's a form online that you go in and fill out, but you have to know what your tax number is. And for anyone who needs help on this, I have someone set up to help do it for you for an hour's worth of work.
If you have been filing French income tax, you should have received, as I did,
Yeah, a number.
email telling you all
I'm
about
not filing tax.
so if you've not filed, then I would take
I
Adrian.
did,
You
you know,
pay taxes on
in
your
the
property.
history, my history.
The number is on your, the number is noted on your tax documents, your property tax documents.
No, it doesn't work. I tried it.
Oh, it worked perfectly
If
for
you're
us.
not, if you've never filed French income taxes, then you can put in the number that shows up on your property tax bill and your habitation bill, and it didn't work.
Well, because you have to create an
Yeah,
account.
you have to create an account.
You have to create an account, and
You have to create
I
an
mean,
account.
years and years and years ago, I paid income tax, but no, I don't have anything recent.
Yeah.
So
you
basically,
saw
there's a phone number to call. There's a phone number you can call, or I would take Adrian.
you can
up on-
email us, and I can refer you to someone who can help you do this.
Yeah. I would take Adrian up.
Yeah.
on her system.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so you also have the lines occupied for free by others.
Yeah.
Now, I included my wife and myself as secondary residents, but our children use it some of the time.
That doesn't matter. That's.
And renting out to others, like some people said they do Airbnbs, they have to, what does that,
That's technically rented out by others.
do they have to include the names of the others, or?
If they rent it out, yeah. If they know the names, yes. If you're renting it out long term, yes, you do have to include.
Long
Just
term,
long-term.
long term.
Generally, long term, yes. Again, this is new, and it's a 2022 thing. But basically, long story short, occupied by others is basically if your neighbor from back home is staying in your house from now, that's occupied by others. It's hébergé à titre gratuit, which happens in France.
So if you have filed that it's your secondary residence,
You may have habitation taxes.
you may.
Yeah, well, you will actually. Yes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say you may. You will.
And they're going, and, well, okay,
Even
but,
though the other times it's empty, it's not rented.
right.
Fresh.
But tax foncières are going to go up to compensate for having removed the taxe d'habitation. So we're all going to be paying more.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
It'll be 2/10 as much as
For
in the
why?
US.
Because they need the money. They've done away with the taxe d'habitation, but the government needs the money. So the taxe foncière is going to go up.
Have tax habitation?
On principal residence.
Okay, let's start over.
Principal residence, yes.
If it's a principal residence, you no longer have taxe d'habitation, but the taxe foncière will go up.
Yes, it started in January 1st.
What constitutes principal residence?
It's your principal residence. It's the house you live in principally.
Back, it's
It's your
back to
home.
tax residency.
It's your home. Yeah, it's back to tax residence. Back
Even though you have
again, it comes back to tax residency. It's a case by case.
Okay.
All right.
By the way, you're down to 5 minutes.
I know.
No, but
Goodness.
that's because all the questions happen during the session, not after.
Yes.
So just so you know.
That's fair. If you're not compliant with U.S. filing, there's something called the Streamlined Tax Filing Program to bring you up to
Speed.
up to speed. I call it the Come to Jesus program because basically they allow you, if you're not compliant, they will throw some holy water on you and they will make you compliant. Again, if you have not filed your tax returns for the last X number of years, this program is magnificent. You do not get hit with interest or penalties. It is a great way of coming clean with the IRS.
You can do the same thing in France.
And you can do the same thing
in
in
France.
But,
That's right.
but again, that's called the Streamlined Filing Program. If you have any questions or need any help, let us know. And we're more than happy to talk to you about it. So for real estate, we'll skip this one. I could talk to anyone who's interested in this after. We'll skip this one for now. Let's go through this one, Adrian. Next.
Oh, yeah, that's,
I'll cover that for you after. So things to watch out for in France. I'm just
and
going
I
to go.
also would like to know, like, when you gain money
Yes. We'll cover that. I'll cover that for you after, if that's all right with you, man.
after you sell.
After I finish it.
Dolores, we got 3 minutes left.
Adrian's giving me the hook. I never finish a presentation for Adrian. I always talk too much. What to watch out for in France. Before you move to France, and most of y'all have moved to France or are already French tax residents. Adrian, next slide. Gifting to family members. France has punitive gifting rules. So before you move to France full-time or live in France full-time, gift to family members before. How you hold your U.S. investments. You want to hold U.S. investments and not French investments. So you'll look at that. Trust review. You'll want to look at your estate plan from a U.S. perspective and whether or not you need to hold a trust. Because again, there is a trust filing. You'll want to review your U.S. state residency. A lot of folks are from California. You'll want to break California state residency. Go figure, it's an expensive state. So again, these are all
Move to Florida.
Move to Florida, move to Washington State, move wherever. But basically, you'll also want to review state tax residency. And then the sale of property. The sale of property is the one thing that the tax treaty does not include. If you sell a U.S. sourced piece of property as a French tax resident, you will be taxed in France, but the credit will be equal to the U.S. tax. Therefore, if you have a capital gain of under $250,000 in the U.S., you might wind up not paying any taxes in the U.S. You may wind up paying taxes in France on that property if you become a resident. So it's just something to take note of. If you are thinking of selling your property in the U.S., do it before you come to France, or at least have it on the market before you come to France and sell it relatively shortly after. Again, from a purely tax perspective, not from an investment perspective. Okay? What to watch out for since you are already here. Okay? And these are stuff that I touched on. We touched on now. We touched on also ETFs, mutual funds. French sourced mutual funds, ETFs are something called passive foreign investment companies. Again, this is why I said earlier, the number one thing you can do as a U.S. person is have a good investment advisor who understands U.S. rules. This is why, and again, I jokingly say it, guys like Brian Dunhill have a job. Because we want to avoid PFICs. Passive foreign investment companies, as all four-letter words are bad, it's a bad word. It is heavily taxed. It is expensive. It is going to be expensive. You may wind up paying up to 50% tax after with the interest, depending how long you've held it, between interest and taxes on your sale of PFICs. So you really want to watch out for those as much as possible. Setting up foreign companies. It's important to note, if you're French here and you're if you're living in France and your French accountant says, hey, you should set up a SASU or you should set up an EURL, that may have U.S. tax implications. Everything comes back to the U.S. The U.S. looks at itself. So again, if you're going to set up a foreign company, you would want to talk to your U.S. advisor before doing this. Okay? It's just important to know. I'm just sharing this so you guys know. Keep it in mind. If someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got this cool EURL for us to open to go sell lemonade down the street, that may be fun, but let's have a conversation before you all do it.
Plus you pay the GILTI tax in the U.S. because you're an American citizen with owning a foreign company.
That's exactly why I'm saying talk to us before you go too far down the road of setting it up. And if you've already set it up, talk to us because there are ways to minimize your tax cost. Because again, a foreign company has to file something called a 5471. They are expensive. They are risky. They are heavy. I don't like doing them, so I don't generally do them. I tend to try and sub them out because they are just they are minefields of compliance. So basically, long story short, setting up a foreign company is a risk, and you need to just talk before doing it, or if you've done it, have a conversation relatively quickly thereafter. And then last but not least is, again, the vagaries of the French system and the U.S. system. The U.S. system has to be filed by June, and the French system gets you your assessment later. That is why we file extensions. That is why you file an extension on the U.S. side through till October, through to December, to ensure that you have adequate time to file your U.S. tax return. Okay? Any questions on what to watch out for before we get to my slides about who I am? Cool.
Is everybody okay with going over a bit? Because it's just past 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I never make it through an Adrian presentation on time. I've got to be more guttural. But my name's Jonathan and Hadida. We're Hadida Tax Advisors. That's us. We are here to help however we can. Any other questions?
Oh my God, amazing.
Thank you. Yes, go back to the slide.
I think it's too late. I would like to thank everyone for being here. Okay, I certainly want to thank Jonathan for making this amazing presentation. And the idea is, since I know you all have your own personal situations, the best thing to do is just to talk to Jonathan and get it worked out. Okay? Because you can't get all of your personal questions answered through a seminar like this, only ideas. What business cards are on the table, that's what Bernard is pointing out. And you can certainly find him on our website as well. And I hope that this has been beneficial. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I never finish on time.